Sarah Chen stood in front of the mirror in her office, adjusting her dark blue dress one last time. Tonight was special, the 5th anniversary of her first restaurant, Golden Lotus. Who would have thought that the small eatery she started after her divorce would turn into a chain of 5 successful restaurants across the city? The celebration was in full swing downstairs. She could hear the happy chatter of guests mixed with soft jazz music. The main dining room of Golden Lotus had been transformed for the evening, with golden lights twinkling from the ceiling and white roses on every table. Sarah had personally chosen every detail. Ms. Chen, her assistant Lisa, poked her head through the door. "The guests are asking for you. They want to start the toast." Sarah took a deep breath and smiled. "I'll be right there." As she walked down the stairs, she felt proud. This was her achievement, something she had built from scratch after her life fell apart 5 years ago. The divorce from Marcus had been painful, but it had also pushed her to chase her dreams. She reached the bottom of the stairs and began greeting her guests. Important food critics, loyal customers, and close friends had all come to celebrate with her. Maya, her best friend and business partner, gave her a tight hug. "You did it, girl," Maya whispered in her ear. "You showed everyone what you're made of." Sarah was about to respond when she heard a familiar voice behind her, a voice that made her freeze. "Congratulations, Sarah." She turned slowly, her heart beating fast. There he stood, Marcus Reynolds, her ex-husband, the man she hadn't seen in 5 years, the man who had chosen his company over their marriage. He looked different, yet the same. His black hair had touches of gray at the temples now, and he wore his success well in a perfectly fitted dark suit. The nervous smile on his face was new. The Marcus she knew had always been confident, almost arrogant. "Marcus," she managed to say, proud that her voice didn't shake. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I hope it's okay that I came," he said softly. "When I read about the anniversary celebration in the business section, I wanted to see how you're doing." Sarah noticed people watching them curiously. Of course they would. Everyone in the business world knew who Marcus Reynolds was now. The tech company he had built was worth billions. His face regularly appeared in magazines and news websites. "Would you like a tour?" She found herself asking, wanting to get away from the curious eyes. "Of the restaurant?" Marcus's face lit up. "I'd like that very much." As they walked through the busy kitchen, Sarah explained how she had designed everything herself. The modern equipment, the efficient layout, the special prep stations, it was all her vision. She tried to ignore how attentively Marcus listened, how his eyes followed her with what looked like admiration. "This is incredible, Sarah," he said when they reached her office. "You built something amazing here." "Thank you," she replied stiffly. "It wasn't easy, but I did it on my own." Marcus winced slightly at her words. "I know. And I've been following your success from afar. 5 restaurants in 5 years. That's impressive." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You've been following my career?" "I never stopped caring about you, Sarah," he said quietly, "even when I was horrible at showing it." Before she could respond, Maya appeared at the door. "Sarah, they're ready for your speech downstairs." "I'll be right there," Sarah called out, grateful for the interruption. She turned to Marcus. "I should go." "Wait," Marcus said quickly. Could we meet for coffee sometime? There are things I'd like to talk about." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. The nervous energy, a hopeful look in his eyes, the way his hands fidgeted slightly. This wasn't the same man who had missed her father's funeral for a business meeting. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said softly. "Please," he said, "just one coffee. After that, if you never want to see me again, I'll understand." Sarah hesitated. 5 years of building walls, of protecting herself, of moving forward, and here he was, threatening to complicate everything again. "I'll think about it," she finally said, taking out a business card and handing it to him. "You can email my office." As she walked away to give her anniversary speech, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her carefully built new life was about to get very complicated. Sarah couldn't sleep that night after the restaurant anniversary party. She sat on her apartment's balcony, looking at the city lights while memories she had locked away for 5 years came flooding back. She remembered the first time she met Marcus in college. She had been working part-time at a small cafe near campus to pay for her cooking classes. He would come in every morning, order the same black coffee, and sit with his laptop, working on what he called his big idea, a software that would change the world. One rainy morning, the cafe was unusually empty. Marcus had asked her to try the muffin she had just baked. "This is amazing," he had said with genuine surprise. "You're wasting your talent here. You should have your own restaurant." That was the Marcus she had fallen in love with, the one who believed in her dreams. Sarah got up from her balcony chair and walked inside, picking up an old photo album she kept hidden in her closet. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. There they were, young, happy, and in love. Their small wedding in her parents' backyard, both of them laughing as they cut the cake she had made herself. Their first apartment, tiny and barely furnished, but it had been their home. "We were so happy then," she whispered to herself. The changes had come slowly. First, it was just a few missed dinners because Marcus was working late on his company. Sarah didn't mind. She understood what it meant to have a dream. She would leave food in the fridge with little notes. "Eat well, my busy genius." Then the missed dinners became missed weekends, missed holidays, missed moments. Sarah turned the page of the album. There was a photo of her standing proudly in front of a small restaurant space. She had finally saved enough to think about starting her own place. "Look, Marcus, this could be perfect for us," she had said excitedly. But Marcus hadn't even looked up from his computer. "Not now, Sarah. I'm in the middle of something important." Important. Everything about his work was always important. A tear fell on the photo, and Sarah quickly wiped it away. She remembered the worst day, the day that broke them completely. Her father had been sick for months, fighting cancer. That morning, the hospital had called. "He doesn't have much time left," they said. She had called Marcus 10 times. His secretary kept saying he was in an important meeting with investors. When she finally reached him, his words still haunted her. "Sarah, I can't leave now. This meeting will decide the company's future. Your dad will understand." But her father hadn't lived long enough to understand. He passed away that evening, with Sarah holding his hand. Marcus arrived at the hospital 2 hours too late, still wearing his business suit, carrying his laptop bag. Sarah closed the album with shaking hands. 2 months later, she had filed for divorce. Marcus didn't fight it. He was too busy with his company's first big success. The divorce settlement had been generous, giving her enough to start her first restaurant, Golden Lotus. Her phone buzzed, pulling her back to the present. It was an email notification. From Marcus Reynolds. Subject: Coffee? Dear Sarah, I know seeing me tonight was unexpected. There's so much I need to say to you, so much I need to apologize for. Would you consider meeting me for coffee this Saturday, any time that works for you? I understand if you say no. Marcus. Sarah stared at the email for a long time. The Marcus she saw tonight seemed different, the way he looked at her, how he actually listened when she spoke about her restaurants. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen in the later years of their marriage, respect. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? She put her phone down without replying and walked to her bedroom. On her bedside table sat a framed photo of her father, smiling at her restaurant's opening day. He wasn't there to see it in person, but she knew he would have been proud. "What should I do, Dad?" she whispered to the photo. But only the quiet of the night answered her. After 3 days of avoiding Marcus's email, Sarah finally agreed to meet him for coffee. She chose a small cafe far from her restaurants, where no one would recognize them. As she walked in, exactly 10 minutes late, she saw him already waiting at a corner table. "You came," Marcus said, standing up as she approached. He had dressed casually today, just a simple blue sweater and jeans, so different from his usual business suits. "I almost didn't," Sarah replied honestly, sitting down. She noticed he remembered how she liked her coffee. A vanilla latte was already waiting for her. "I've been going to therapy," Marcus said suddenly, his fingers tapping nervously on his cup. "For the past 3 years." Sarah looked up, surprised. The Marcus she knew would never admit to needing help. "After you left," he continued, "everything fell apart. Yes, the company became successful. The money came pouring in, but I was miserable." He paused, taking a deep breath. "One day, I found myself sitting alone in my big office, staring at our old wedding photo, and I realized I had everything I thought I wanted, but I lost the only thing that really mattered." "Marcus," Sarah started, but he held up his hand. "Please, let me finish. My therapist helped me understand what I did wrong. How I became obsessed with success and forgot about the people who mattered. How I hurt you. How I wasn't there when your father. His voice cracked slightly. I will never forgive myself for that day. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes but refused to let them fall. Why are you telling me all this now? Because I've changed, Marcus said softly. Or I'm trying to. The company now has rules about work-life balance. Nobody is allowed to work past 7 without special permission. We have family days, personal time off, mandatory vacations. He smiled sadly. All the things I should have done years ago. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was Maya. Where are you? Emergency at Golden Lotus. Health inspector showed up early. Sarah stood up quickly. I have to go. There's an emergency at the restaurant. To her surprise, Marcus didn't try to stop her or ask her to stay. Instead, he nodded understanding. Of course, your business needs you. As Sarah rushed to leave, Marcus called out Sarah. Would you let me prove to you that I've changed? Not as your husband, not even as a romantic interest. Just as a friend. She turned back, studying his face. The desperation she saw there was new. The old Marcus would never have allowed himself to appear so vulnerable. How? She asked cautiously. Let me help with the restaurants. Not with money, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just, let me be there. As a supporter. A friend. Someone who believes in your dreams, like I should have years ago. Sarah thought about it. The health inspector was waiting, but this moment felt important. And what do you want in return? A chance, Marcus said simply. Not a guarantee, not a promise. Just a chance to show you who I am now. And if you decide that you still want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that. Maya texted again. Sarah, now. I have to go, Sarah said firmly. But I'll think about it. She hurried to her car, her mind racing. At Golden Lotus, she handled the health inspection perfectly. Years of experience had taught her well. Her restaurant passed with flying colors. Later that evening, as she sat in her office doing paperwork, her phone buzzed again. It was Marcus. I heard Golden Lotus passed its surprise inspection today. Congratulations. I always knew you were amazing at what you do. I just forgot to tell you that when it mattered. If you're willing, I'd love to hear about how you handle these challenges. Dinner sometime? As friends? Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Maya walked in and saw her expression. Oh no, Maya said, recognizing that look. Please tell me you're not considering giving him another chance. Sarah turned to her friend. Not a chance at us. Just a chance to be different. Maya sat down heavily in the chair across from Sarah's desk. You know what they say, a leopard doesn't change its spots. Maybe, Sarah replied, looking back at the message, but people aren't leopards. 2 weeks had passed since Sarah had agreed to be friends with Marcus. They had settled into a careful routine, coffee every Wednesday morning before work, where they talked about their businesses and life in general. Sarah kept her guard up, but she couldn't deny that Marcus seemed different. Today, they sat at their usual corner table in the quiet cafe. Sarah was telling him about her plans to open a cooking school alongside her restaurants. The space next to Golden Lotus is perfect, she explained, showing him pictures on her phone. But the renovation costs are too high right now. Marcus listened carefully, making notes on his phone. The old Marcus would have immediately offered to write a check. This Marcus just nodded thoughtfully and asked, have you considered starting with weekend classes in your existing kitchen? You could test the market without the big investment. Sarah blinked, surprised by the practical suggestion. I hadn't thought of that. Just then, a group of business people walked into the cafe. One of them recognized Marcus and came over excitedly. Marcus Reynolds. What a surprise. The man then noticed Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry, am I interrupting a meeting? Before Marcus could respond, Sarah stood up. Actually, I was just leaving. I have a restaurant to run. She gathered her things quickly, not wanting to get pulled into Marcus's business world again. But Marcus surprised her. Tom, I'm having coffee with a friend. We can talk business another time. Please excuse us. Sarah sat back down slowly, watching as the man walked away looking disappointed. The old Marcus would never have dismissed a potential business contact. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I did. Marcus replied simply. I'm learning to prioritize what matters. Later that week, Sarah tried out Marcus's suggestion. She announced a trial weekend cooking class at Golden Lotus, and the spots filled up within hours. The first class was a huge success, with students asking for more sessions. That evening, she sent Marcus a short message. Your idea worked. Thank you. His reply came quickly. I'm glad I could help. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate, just as friends. Sarah found herself typing yes before she could overthink it. They met at a small Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy, nothing romantic. Over pasta, Marcus asked about the cooking class, listening intently as Sarah described her students' excitement. You're amazing when you teach, he said suddenly. I remember watching you teach our neighbor's daughter how to make cookies years ago. You have a gift for it. Sarah felt her cheeks warm. She hadn't expected him to remember such a small moment from their past. I've been thinking, Marcus said, pushing his pasta around his plate nervously. Would you consider letting me attend one of your classes? I never learned to cook properly, and maybe it's time I did. Sarah stared at him. You want to take a cooking class? You. Why not? He smiled. My personal chef quit last month. I've been living on takeout. The great Marcus Reynolds can't find a new chef? She teased, surprising herself with how natural it felt. Maybe I don't want one, he replied softly. Maybe I want to learn to take care of myself better. The next Saturday, Marcus showed up at Golden Lotus wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, ready for his first cooking class. Sarah had to hide her smile as she watched him struggle with chopping onions. My eyes, he complained, making the other students laugh. Here, Sarah said, demonstrating the proper technique. Hold the knife like this. As she helped him adjust his grip on the knife, their hands touched briefly. Sarah pulled away quickly, but not before noticing how her heart had skipped a beat. Maya, who was helping with the class, saw the moment and frowned. Later, she cornered Sarah in the office. Be careful, Maya warned. I see the way he looks at you when you're teaching. And more importantly, I see the way you're starting to look at him. We're just friends, Sarah insisted. Really? Maya raised an eyebrow. Then why did I find you smiling at his terrible attempts to make pasta? Sarah didn't have an answer for that, because the truth was, somewhere between the coffee meetings and cooking classes, Marcus's presence in her life had started to feel less like a threat and more like something else, something she wasn't ready to name yet. Sarah was having breakfast when her phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages from friends, family, and even her employees flooded in. Then Maya called, her voice panicked. Have you seen the Business Daily website? Maya asked without saying hello. Sarah, it's bad. Sarah quickly opened her laptop and found the article. Her heart stopped as she read the headline, Restaurant Empire or Gold Diggers Scheme? The Truth Behind Golden Lotus's Success. The article was cruel. It suggested that Sarah's restaurants only became successful because of Marcus Reynolds' secret support. It claimed she was using their past connection to gain publicity and investors. There were photos of their coffee meetings, Marcus attending her cooking class, and even old pictures from their marriage. This isn't true, Sarah whispered, her hands shaking. None of this is true. Her phone rang again. This time it was her biggest investor, Mr. Thompson. Sarah, we need to talk about these allegations. My other partners are concerned. Before she could explain, another call came in. And another. Everyone wanted answers. At Golden Lotus, reporters had gathered outside, taking pictures through the windows. Some of her regular customers walked away after seeing the crowd. Sarah watched from her office as her carefully built world started crumbling. I've already called our lawyer, Maya said, pacing the office. We can sue them for defamation. We have all the documents showing how we built this business from scratch. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. I just saw the article. I'm so sorry. Let me help fix this. No, Sarah typed back furiously. You've helped enough? She turned to Maya with tears in her eyes. You were right. I was stupid to let him back into my life. Everything I touch that's connected to Marcus turns to ash. Just then, Lisa rushed in. Miss Chen, Mr. Reynolds is here. He's talking to the reporters outside. Sarah ran to the window. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, surrounded by reporters and cameras. Her first instinct was to run down and stop him, but something made her wait and listen. I want to make something very clear. Marcus's voice was firm and angry. Sarah Chen built her restaurant empire entirely on her own. During our marriage, I was too blind and focused on my own success to support her dreams. After our divorce, she used her own savings and hard work to create Golden Lotus. I had nothing to do with it. He paused, looking directly at the cameras. In fact, Sarah Chen's success story inspired me to change how I run my own company. She showed me that true success comes from passion and dedication, not just money. These allegations are not only false, but show a deep misunderstanding of who Sarah Chen is, one of the most talented and hardworking entrepreneurs I know. Sarah watched as Marcus continued defending her, feeling confused. Part of her wanted to be angry that he had interfered, but another part. He's trending on social media, Maya said, looking at her phone. Business leaders are sharing his speech. The tide is turning. But Sarah barely heard her. She was remembering all the times during their marriage when Marcus had chosen his company's reputation over hers. Now, here he was, risking his own reputation to defend her. She walked downstairs and out the front door. The reporters immediately turned their cameras to her. "Ms. Chen, what do you say about Mr. Reynolds' statements? Is this a publicity stunt? Are you two reconciling?" Sarah looked at Marcus, who had stopped speaking when she appeared. For a moment, their eyes met. She saw worry there, and something else, respect, genuine respect for her and her achievements. But the damage was done. Her restaurant's reputation, built over years of hard work, was under attack. And somehow, despite his best intentions, Marcus was once again at the center of her world falling apart. "No comment," she said firmly to the reporters, then turned to Marcus. "I think you should leave." "Sarah, please." "Leave, Marcus," she repeated, her voice breaking slightly. "Just leave." As she walked back into her restaurant, Sarah felt the walls she had carefully built around her heart strengthening again. But this time, they felt less like protection and more like a prison. A week after the media scandal, Sarah sat alone in Golden Lotus late at night, going through old business documents to prove her restaurant's legitimate history. Maya had gone home hours ago, but Sarah couldn't sleep. Between defending her reputation and keeping her businesses running, she was exhausted. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You should see this. It might help." There was a link attached. Usually, Sarah ignored anonymous messages, but something made her click. It opened to a small food blog from 3 years ago. The article showed pictures of several small restaurants that had survived the pandemic, all thanking an anonymous donor who had helped them stay open. As Sarah scrolled through, she recognized the writing style. It was Jenny, her old college friend who now worked as a food critic. She called her immediately, despite the late hour. "Jenny, did you send me this link?" Finally, Jenny sounded relieved. "Sarah, there's something you need to know. Remember when I was investigating pandemic support for small restaurants? I discovered that Marcus Reynolds had set up a secret fund to help family-owned restaurants survive. He never wanted publicity for it." Sarah sat down heavily. "What?" "He helped save over 50 small restaurants," Jenny continued, "but made everyone sign NDAs so it wouldn't become public. He said he didn't want it to look like a publicity stunt." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw what the media is doing to you," Jenny replied. "And there's more. I'm sending you some old emails. Read them." Minutes later, Sarah was staring at email screenshots from 5 years ago. They were between Marcus and his company's board members, dated just before their divorce. The board had tried to force Marcus to step down, claiming he was too inexperienced. And there, in black and white, was an email from Sarah to the board, defending Marcus. "His vision and dedication will make this company great," she had written. "Marcus Reynolds may be young, but he understands technology and people's needs better than anyone I know. Removing him would be your biggest mistake." Sarah remembered writing that email. It was during their worst times, when Marcus was barely coming home, but she had still believed in him. Her phone rang again. This time it was Maya. "Sarah, I found something weird in our old files." Maya sounded confused. "Remember last month when Marcus suggested starting small with the cooking classes? I just realized You made the exact same suggestion 5 years ago. What do you mean? I found his old email from right before your divorce. You wrote this long message about how you should start small, test the market with weekend classes. But Maya paused. The email was sent the day after your father's funeral. You never saw it because you had already blocked him. Sarah's hands began to shake. All this time, she thought Marcus had never supported her dreams. But he had tried. Too late, but he had tried. She opened her laptop and searched her old email account. There it was, in the blocked folder. Marcus's email was long, detailed, and passionate about her cooking school idea. He had even attached a basic business plan. The date caught her eye. The email was sent at 3 a.m., just hours after her father's funeral. She could almost see him, sitting alone in his office, trying too late to be the husband she needed. Sarah's phone buzzed one more time. Marcus, I know you asked me to leave, and I will respect that. But before I go, I need you to know something. 5 years ago, your email to my board saved my company. You believed in me when no one else did. I didn't deserve your faith then. I wanted to believe in your dreams too, but I did it wrong. Too late, when you couldn't hear me anymore. I'm sorry. This time, I'll do better. I'll respect your wishes and stay away. Your success is your own, Sarah. It always was. Sarah stared at the message for a long time, tears falling on her phone screen. The truth was more complicated than she had ever imagined. They had both tried to support each other's dreams, but their timing had always been wrong. Until now. 2 months had passed since the media scandal. Sarah's restaurants were doing better than ever. The controversy had actually brought more customers who wanted to support her. The cooking classes were full, and she had finally started planning the cooking school of her dreams. She hadn't spoken to Marcus since that night, though she knew he was still watching over her from afar. His public defense of her had gone viral, and business magazines were now calling her the self-made restaurant queen. One quiet Monday morning, Maya burst into Sarah's office at Golden Lotus. Have you seen the news? Marcus is selling his company. Sarah quickly opened the news website. The headlines were everywhere. Tech billionaire Marcus Reynolds in talks to sell company for $50 billion. According to the articles, he planned to start a new venture in Singapore. Singapore? Sarah whispered. That was halfway around the world. Just then, her office phone rang. It was Marcus's assistant. Miss Chen. Mr. Reynolds would like to meet with you. It's important. 2 hours later, Sarah sat across from Marcus in his office. The view of the city from his window was spectacular, but his desk was already half-packed in boxes. You're selling the company, Sarah said quietly. Marcus nodded. They made an offer I couldn't refuse. But that's not why I asked you here. He took a deep breath. I'm starting a new company in Singapore. It's a different kind of tech, focusing on helping small businesses survive in the digital age. When do you leave? That's what I wanted to discuss with you. Marcus leaned forward. The old me would have just made this decision alone, moved across the world, and probably lost you forever. Again. But I'm trying to be different now. He paused. I want to know what you think. Sarah stared at him. What I think? About your business decision? About all of it, Marcus said softly. The company, Singapore, the future, us. Us. Sarah's heart beat faster. Marcus, there is no us. Isn't there? He stood up and walked to the window. 5 years ago, I made all my decisions based on business. I lost you because I couldn't see what was really important. He turned back to face her. This time, I'm putting you first. If you tell me to stay, I'll find another way to start this venture here. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. You can't put this on me. I won't be the reason you give up your dreams. You're not understanding, Marcus said, moving closer. You're part of my dreams now. The question is, am I part of yours? Sarah stood up, needing space to think. The old Marcus would have announced his decision and expected her to follow. This Marcus was asking her opinion, considering her feelings, making her part of the decision. But she wasn't the same person either. The old Sarah might have dropped everything to follow her husband's dreams. This Sarah had her own empire to run. I can't leave, she said finally. My restaurants, my cooking school, my life is here. Marcus nodded, looking sad but understanding. I know. But, Sarah continued, Surprising herself, Singapore has amazing food culture. It could be a perfect place for a golden lotus branch. Eventually, Marcus's head snapped up. What are you saying? I'm saying. Sarah took a deep breath. I'm saying that maybe we can find a way to follow both our dreams this time. Not right away, but someday, if we're patient, if we plan together. Long distance? Marcus asked softly. For now, Sarah replied. We both need to prove to ourselves that we can succeed independently. And then, maybe. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. They both understood what she was offering. Not a guarantee, but a possibility. A chance to build something new, something that respected both their dreams. Marcus reached for her hand, then stopped himself. I'll come back often for board meetings. And Singapore is just a video call away. Sarah smiled slightly. You'll need cooking lessons there too. Singapore food is complicated. For the first time that day, Marcus laughed. Is that an offer to teach me? Maybe, Sarah said. One step at a time. 1 year had passed since Marcus moved to Singapore. The seasons had changed, both their businesses had grown, and somehow, their relationship had deepened despite the distance. Sarah stood in her new cooking school, watching her students practice. The building next to Golden Lotus had finally become her dream space, with modern kitchens and large windows letting in natural light. On one wall hung a photo from opening day, Sarah cutting the ribbon, with Marcus smiling proudly through a video call on a large screen nearby. Your soufflé is falling. She called out to a student, moving quickly to help save the dish. As she demonstrated the proper technique, her phone buzzed with a familiar notification. It was time for their daily video call. In her office, Sarah settled into her chair and answered the call. Marcus appeared on screen, looking tired but happy. Behind him, Singapore's night skyline glittered. You look exhausted, she said, noting the dark circles under his eyes. Worth it, he replied with a smile. We just signed our 100th small business client. The digital platform is really helping them compete with bigger companies. Sarah felt proud. The old Marcus would have celebrated by buying another company. This Marcus was excited about helping small businesses survive. How's the cooking going? She asked, spotting takeout containers in the background. Marcus looked guilty. I tried making that laksa recipe you sent. Let's just say the local hawker center still makes it better. He paused. I miss your cooking. Well, Sarah said carefully, you might not have to miss it much longer. I've been talking with some restaurant consultants in Singapore. Marcus sat up straighter. Really? You're really considering it? Golden Lotus Singapore, Sarah said, showing him some design plans on her screen. The location they found is perfect. And she took a deep breath. Maya has agreed to manage things here while I oversee the opening. The joy on Marcus's face made her heart skip. But then he controlled his expression. How long would you stay? 3 months for the opening, Sarah replied. Then we'll see. They had learned to take things slowly, to respect each other's independence while building something new together. Their weekly cooking lessons over video call had become a highlight for both of them, even when Marcus burned water or Sarah laughed at his clumsy night skills. I saw the article about your father's memorial foundation, Marcus said softly. The charitable foundation Sarah had started in her father's name helped children learn cooking and business skills. The first-class graduates next week, Sarah smiled. Dad would have loved teaching them. He would have been so proud of you, Marcus said. I know I am. Sarah felt tears forming. Those words, simple, sincere, and supportive, meant more than all the grand gestures in the world. Their conversation was interrupted by Maya bursting into the office. Sarah, the health inspector is here again. Go, Marcus said immediately. Call me later. Sarah nodded and ended the call, hurrying to handle the inspection. Hours later, after another perfect score, she sat in her quiet restaurant. The evening customers had left, and the staff was cleaning up. On her desk sat 2 framed photos, one of her father and one from her cooking school's opening day. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Just booked my ticket for next month's board meeting. Save me a seat in your advanced cooking class? Sarah smiled as she typed back. Only if you promise not to set off the fire alarm this time. His reply came quickly. No promises, but I'll keep trying until I get it right. And that was the difference, Sarah realized. They were both still ambitious, still chasing their dreams, but now they were doing it while supporting each other. Their love story hadn't ended with their divorce. It just needed time to simmer, like a perfect sauce, until all the flavors came together. She looked out at her restaurant, then at her phone showing Marcus's message, and felt at peace. Sometimes, the best recipes were the ones that took the longest to perfect.